Today I'll be painting this soft willow scene, and while the colors unfold on paper, I'll be telling a story called The Weeping Willow's Secret, a quiet reflection on grief, change, and the beauty of small moments. There are moments in life when time seems too slow, when the ordinary world reveals its hidden magic through the simplest of encounters. I discovered one such moment on a misty September morning when I found myself standing beneath the graceful canopy of an ancient weeping willow by the edge of Millbrook Pond. The tree stood like a gentle guardian at the water's edge, its long, delicate branches cascading down like nature's own beaded curtain. Each slender frond was adorned with dewdrops that caught the soft morning light, transforming the entire canopy into a living constellation of tiny, luminous pearls. Some droplets were as small as pinheads, others as round and full as marbles, each one a perfect lens that captured and refracted the warm glow from the distant houses across the pond. I had risen early that morning, unable to sleep, carrying with me the weight of a decision that felt too large for my tired mind. The promotion at work, more money, more responsibility, more of everything I thought I wanted, waited for my answer. But standing there in the gentle pre-dawn light, watching dewdrops tremble on the willow's graceful branches, I felt suspended between two worlds, like the moisture itself, caught between holding on and letting go. The night had been restless, filled with the kind of tossing and turning that comes when your mind refuses to quiet. I'd given up on sleep around 4:30 and driven through empty streets to this place I'd discovered months earlier during a lunch break. Something about the pond's stillness had called to me then, offering a respite from the constant hum of office life. Now, facing these crossroads, I'd returned, seeking clarity in the pre-dawn darkness. As the sun began its slow climb above the horizon, the mist started to lift from the pond's surface in gentle wisps, like the earth's quiet breathing made visible. The water was perfectly still, creating a mirror so flawless it seemed like looking into another dimension, one where the weeping willow's graceful form existed both above and below, where reality and reflection merged into something altogether more magical. The distant houses across the pond began to emerge from the mist, like ships materializing from fog. Their windows glowed with warm golden light that spoke of lives beginning their daily rhythm, coffee brewing in quiet kitchens, families stirring awake, the gentle sounds of morning routines unfolding behind curtained windows. There was something deeply comforting about those distant lights, a reminder that even in this moment of solitude, I was part of a larger human tapestry. The willow's branches swayed almost imperceptibly in the still air, responding to breezes so gentle they barely registered. This subtle movement caused the dewdrops to dance and shimmer, each one catching the strengthening light and throwing it back in tiny, brilliant flashes. The entire tree seemed alive with captured starlight, as if it had spent the night gathering celestial gifts to share with the waking world. Some dewdrops had grown heavy enough to fall, their weight finally overcoming the delicate surface tension that held them to the leaves. Each falling drop created a perfect moment, a tiny sphere of water and light arcing gracefully through the morning air before meeting the pond's surface with the softest kiss. The impact sent concentric ripples spreading outward in perfect circles, each ring carrying the dewdrop's essence further into the pond until it disappeared entirely into the greater calm. I found myself mesmerized by this quiet choreography. There was something profound in this simple act of release, the way the dewdrops didn't cling desperately to their perch, but let go with such grace when their time came, trusting that their journey would continue in a new form. As I watched this morning meditation unfold, I noticed an elderly woman sitting on a weathered wooden bench further along the pond's edge. She was so still that she seemed part of the landscape itself, wrapped in a soft grey cardigan that perfectly matched the morning mist. Her silver hair was pinned back simply, and in her hands she held a worn leather journal, though she wasn't writing. Instead, she was watching the weeping willow with the same absorbed attention I had been giving it. When she sensed my presence, she looked up and smiled. Not the polite but distant acknowledgement strangers typically exchange, but the warm recognition of someone who understood the sacredness of quiet morning moments. When she gestured gently toward the empty spade beside her, it felt completely natural to walk over and settle there. "Beautiful morning," she said softly, her voice carrying the gentle warmth of someone who had witnessed thousands of such dawns. "I come here every day to watch the willow wake up. Been doing it for 12 years now, ever since my Harold passed." "I'm Margaret," she said, extending a hand that was soft but strong. "And you're the young woman who comes here sometimes on lunch breaks. I've seen you before, though we've never spoken." I was surprised she'd noticed me, but pleased. There was something reassuring about being seen, about existing in someone else's awareness, even in small ways. Margaret opened her journal to show me pages filled with careful observations, written in fading blue ink, her handwriting precise and elegant. Each page contained detailed notes about the morning's conditions: temperature, wind direction, the quality of light, which birds had come to drink from the pond. "I write down what I see," she explained, turning to a page from the previous week that described how frost had turned the willow's branches into crystal sculptures. "The way the light changes through the seasons, how many dewdrops fall in the first hour after sunrise, which creatures make their homes here. Harold used to tease me about noticing too much, said I'd fill my head with details and miss the bigger picture. But after he died, I realized those little details are the bigger picture. They're what makes a life beautiful. The small, precious moments we usually walk right past." She had started coming to the pond during those first difficult months of widowhood, when sleep was elusive and the house felt too empty. The long hours before dawn had stretched endlessly, filled with the particular loneliness that comes when you reach for someone who's no longer there. The pond offered something different, not just distraction from grief, but engagement with beauty, a reason to pay attention to the world beyond her loss. Those first mornings, I could barely see the willows through my tears, she admitted. But gradually, I started noticing things. The way the light changed by degrees, how the tree's reflection danced when the water was disturbed. Small observations at first, but they gave me something to focus on besides the emptiness. The weeping willow had become her daily companion, its transformation from mist-shrouded mystery to radiant gem of wonder, providing a gentle rhythm that helped her navigate the shapeless days of grief. More than that, it had taught her a new way of being present in the world. The thing about willow trees, Margaret said, turning to a page from the previous spring, is that they're always changing, but they remain essentially themselves. Look at it now, covered in what looks like thousands of tiny diamonds. In another hour, when the sun gets stronger, most of that moisture will be gone, and the tree will look completely different. But it's still the same willow, still graceful, still beautiful, just transformed. As she spoke, I studied the tree with new understanding. She was right. It was in constant flux, yet utterly constant. The dewdrops decorating its branches were already responding to the strengthening light. Some evaporated directly into the warming air, returning to begin the eternal cycle again. Others grew too heavy and fell with tiny musical splashes into the pond below. I used to think letting go meant losing something, Margaret continued, watching another cluster of droplets release their hold. But this tree taught me different. Those dewdrops aren't lost when they fall. They're just changing form, becoming part of something bigger. The pond that reflects the sky, the mist that rises at dawn. Nothing really disappears, it just transforms. Her words touched something deep in my chest. I had been thinking about my career crossroads as a choice between loss and gain, between security and risk. But perhaps, like the dewdrops on the willow's branches, it was really about transformation, allowing one form of my life to release so that another could emerge. Margaret showed me more pages of her journal, observations that read like gentle poetry. She had documented how morning light shifted through the seasons, how the willow's branches moved differently in summer's full leaf versus winter's bare elegance. Her attention to detail was extraordinary, but never felt obsessive, rather like the natural expression of someone who had discovered that paying careful attention to beauty was itself a form of prayer. Harold always said I should have been an artist, she mused, running her finger along a detailed entry about frost patterns on the willow's branches. But maybe I am one, just not the kind that makes paintings. I make moments, I guess. I take these fleeting things and give them weight by writing them down, by treating them as if they matter. I realized I was witnessing a different form of artistry, the art of presence, of finding profound beauty in the everyday miracle of a tree beside a pond. Margaret has transformed her grief into a practice of wonder, learning to paint with words instead of pigments. The funny thing is, she continued, I probably see more beauty in a single morning now than I used to notice in entire weeks when I was younger and busier. Grief strips away everything non-essential, leaving you face to face with what actually matters. And what matters is this: the way light moves through leaves, the sound water makes when it's perfectly calm. Simple things, but profound. The sun had climbed higher now, and our willow was undergoing another transformation. The dewdrops were fewer, but those remaining seemed to glow more intensely, like scattered diamonds against the green backdrop of leaves. The mist had lifted from the pond's surface, revealing the perfect reflection and creating a sense of depth that made the water seem like a doorway into another realm. The houses across the water were now clearly visible, their modest architecture speaking of families who had chosen to make their lives beside this peaceful water. Some had small gardens that extended almost to the water's edge. Others maintained lawns where children's toys suggested young families living full lives. I sometimes wonder about the people in those houses, Margaret said, following my gaze, what they're thinking as they turn on their lights each morning, whether they ever look across and see our willow, whether they know how beautiful their windows look from here. We are all connected by this water, this view, even though most of us will never meet. In one of the clearest windows, I could see gentle movement, perhaps someone preparing breakfast, or simply standing with coffee, looking out at the same scene we were contemplating. There was something touching about that small human activity framed by warm light. Another person beginning another day in the quiet company of this willow-watched pond. As the morning progressed, I found myself falling into the rhythm Margaret had discovered, the meditative practice of simply watching, allowing the subtle changes to work their quiet magic on my restless mind. There was something deeply healing about surrendering the need to be productive, to make decisions urgently. Instead, I existed in the suspended moment, like the dewdrops themselves, held in perfect balance. People think retirement means having nothing to do, Margaret said. Friends ask how I fill my days, as if time without scheduled obligations is empty. But I've never been busier, not with tasks, but with participation, really seeing what's around me, really being present for it. This morning ritual isn't empty time, it's the fullest part of my day. I understood completely. In my corporate life, I measure time by productivity, by tasks completed and goals achieved. But sitting beside this pond, watching dewdrops fall like gentle prayers, I remembered a different way of being, where presence itself was enough, where witnessing beauty was work enough for a lifetime. The pond held its own particular quality of quiet. The soft plip of dewdrops falling created an irregular but soothing rhythm. The whisper of willow fronds added subtle percussion, while morning birds contributed their tentative melodies to the growing symphony. Margaret had learned to listen to this music, finding in its rhythms a meditation that sustained her through her hardest passage. Harold was always talking, she said with gentle fondness. Wonderful man, but he filled every space with words. After he died, the quiet was overwhelming at first, but then I discovered it wasn't really quiet at all. The world is full of conversation if you know how to listen. As the last wisps of morning mist dissolved, I felt something shift inside me. Not sudden clarity, but gradual recognition that the answer I sought had been forming all along, like dew gathering through the patient hours of dawn. The promotion, the corporate ladder, the carefully planned trajectory, all of it felt suddenly insubstantial, like morning mist that will burn away under honest sunlight. What felt real was this, the weight of beauty, the gift of unexpected companionship, the satisfaction that comes from paying attention to the world's quiet offerings. Margaret seemed to sense the change in me. Something's shifting for you, she said gently. I think so, I replied. I've been trying to decide about a job opportunity, about my career path, but sitting here, watching the dewdrops fall, I keep thinking about what you said, about transformation rather than loss. She nodded knowingly. Sometimes we have to let go of what we think we want to make room for what we actually need. The willow knows that. Every season it releases what no longer serves, trusts that what's essential will remain. The sun had fully risen now, and the last dewdrops were releasing their gentle hold on the willow's branches. Each fall created its own perfect moment, the brief suspension in air, the soft splash, ripples spreading outward like visible prayers. Margaret and I watched in silence as the tree completed its morning transformation, shedding its gilded cloak to reveal the simpler beauty of its natural form. Without the decoration of dewdrops, the willow's true architecture became visible. The elegant curve of its trunk, the way its branches moved with air currents. There, Margaret said softly as the final drop let go and joined the pond. Another morning, another small miracle completed. The same tree and completely different. I pulled out my phone, the device feeling strange after the natural rhythms of the morning. Before I could second guess myself, I typed a message declining the promotion. Not with drama, but with gratitude and a simple statement that I was choosing a different path. After hitting send, I felt the same lightness I imagined the dewdrops experienced, the freedom that comes from trusting the current rather than fighting it. Margaret watched with knowing eyes. Feels right? Terrifying and right, I admitted. She laughed. A sound like water over stones. The best decisions usually do. We sat together longer, watching the willow settle into its day. The pond reflecting the strengthening sky. I knew I would need to figure out practical things, how to make a living while making room for moments like this, how to build a life around presence rather than pure productivity. But for now, it was enough to have made the release, to trust that like the dewdrops, my essence will continue in whatever new form emerged. As I prepared to leave, Margaret tore a page from her journal and handed it to me. It contained her observations from our shared morning, when the mist shifted, when the dewdrops caught the light, the way reflections danced on water. At the bottom she had written, "A stranger became a friend while the willow shed its morning pearls. Some gifts arrive exactly when we stop looking for them." "I hope you come back," she said. "The willow looks different every day, sometimes crystal covered like this morning, sometimes hung with rain, sometimes bare in winter, showing the beauty of its bones, but it's always worth watching." I promised I would return, knowing I meant it completely. This pond, this tree, this practice of gentle observation had given me something precious, a way of being in the world that honored both change and continuity, both letting go and holding on to what truly mattered. Walking away as the morning settled into full brightness, I felt the weight of the gift settling into my bones. I had come seeking a decision and found instead a different way of living, a reminder that important answers don't come through force or analysis, but through patient attention, allowing life to reveal its deeper rhythms. The weeping willow will be here tomorrow morning, gathering its crown of dewdrops through the dark hours, releasing them as gifts when light returned. The cycle would continue, the same tree, constantly changing, always beautiful, always teaching the lesson of graceful impermanence to anyone wise enough to sit still and watch. Behind me, I could hear Margaret's pen moving across paper, capturing another moment in her endless catalogue of small miracles. The willow rustled softly, already beginning to gather moisture for tomorrow's display. The pond held it all, the falling drops, the changing light, the reflection of distant houses where other lives continued their quiet journeys. And in my pocket, along with my phone and keys, I carried Margaret's gift, a single page filled with careful observations, a reminder that every morning offers its own quiet revelation to those who know how to look, how to listen, how to let go with the same trust and grace as dewdrops falling from a weeping willow's gentle embrace. Thanks for sitting beside this quiet pond with me. If this story reminded you of your own moments of letting go, or inspired you to find beauty in the gentle rhythms of morning light, I'd be honored to hear about it. Until next time, may dewdrops and peaceful decisions find you wherever you are.